Queen Vathery stood alone on the observation deck of her flagship. The stars outside looked beautiful and peaceful, but she knew the truth. Death was coming. Death had been coming for 3 years now, and nothing could stop it. She was tall and slender, with silver scales that covered her body like armor. Her eyes were large and purple, and right now they were filled with tears. Queens of the Silvani Dominion were not supposed to cry. They were supposed to be strong. They were supposed to protect their people. But Vathery had failed. The Kethrani horde had appeared without warning. They came from the dark spaces between galaxies, a swarm of creatures that existed only to consume. They were neither fully alive nor fully machine. They were something in between, something wrong. Their bodies were made of metal and flesh twisted together. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply ate everything in their path. 17 worlds had fallen. 17 beautiful planets filled with billions of Silvani lives. Gone. The Kethrani consumed the people, the animals, the plants, even the rocks and soil. They left behind nothing but empty husks of dead worlds. Vathery's military had tried to fight. Admiral Sorath, her most trusted commander, had thrown everything they had at the enemy. It was not enough. The Kethrani adapted to every weapon. They learned from every battle. They were endless, and the Silvani were running out of ships, soldiers, and hope. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Sorath walked in slowly. He was old for a Silvani. His scales faded to a dull gray. He had fought in wars before Vitari was born. But even he looked defeated now. "My queen," he said, bowing his head. "We have received the latest reports. The Kethrani have reached the Varathi system. They will consume it within days." Vathery closed her eyes. The Varathi system had 4 billion people. 4 billion souls who would die screaming while she stood here, helpless. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. 12 warships capable of fighting. Perhaps 30 transport vessels. That is all. And the other empires? The Galactic Assembly? Sorath made a sound of disgust. They send their sympathies. They send their prayers. But they will not send their fleets. They fear the Kethrani will turn on them if they interfere. Vathery understood. The galaxy was filled with cowards who would watch the Silvani die and do nothing. They would mourn at diplomatic ceremonies. They would name days of remembrance. But they would not lift a finger to help. "There must be someone," she whispered. "Someone who will help us." Sorath hesitated. His scale shifted color slightly, a sign of discomfort. "There is one possibility, but I do not recommend it. Tell me, the humans." Vathery turned to look at him. "The humans? The primitives from the Sol system?" "Yes, my queen. They joined the Galactic Assembly 40 years ago. They are young. They are weak. Their bodies are soft, and their lives are short. Most of the elder races consider them barely worth noticing. Then why suggest them?" Sorath paused. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, almost afraid. "There are rumors, my queen. Stories that spread among the elder races when they think no one is listening. They say the humans are different. Different how? They say the humans spent their entire evolutionary history fighting each other. War after war after war for thousands of years. They say the humans have perfected the art of killing. They say that despite their soft bodies and short lives, they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Vathery almost laughed. "That sounds like superstition. Tales to scare children. Perhaps. But I have seen their records. Their planet's history. They have weapons that can crack worlds. They have survived plagues, famines, and disasters that would have ended most species. And they keep going. They never stop. They never surrender." Sorath shook his head. "I do not understand them, my queen. but I am beginning to fear them. Vatiri thought about this. She had nothing left to lose. Her empire was dying. Her people were dying. If there was even a small chance that these strange, soft creatures could help, she had to try. "Send them a message," she said. "Tell them everything. Tell them we are dying. Tell them we beg for assistance. Any assistance." Sorth bowed. "What shall I offer them in return?" "Anything they want. Everything we have. It will not matter if we are all dead." The message was sent across the stars. It traveled through relay stations and communication networks until it reached a small blue planet called Earth. It arrived at a building in a city called Geneva, where the United Defense Council held their meetings. The humans read the message. They watched the attached footage of Kethrani attacks. They saw the bodies. They saw the destruction. They saw Queen Vatiri herself, proud and broken, begging for help. The council members sat in silence for a long time. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. Her name was Director Amara Singh, and she was known for making difficult decisions. "They're asking for our help," she said. "An entire civilization is being slaughtered, and they're asking us to save them. We don't have the ships for a full military intervention," said one general. "Our fleet is still small compared to the elder races." "Then, we don't send a fleet," said another voice. It belonged to General Catherine Reyes, a woman with gray hair and scars on her face. She had seen more combat than anyone in the room. "They asked for assistance. They asked for fighters. Let's send them exactly that." "What do you mean?" General Reyes smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much death to fear anything anymore. "We send them our best. Not our biggest army. Not our fanciest weapons. We send them the most dangerous people on this planet. We send them the ones who know how to win wars that should not be won." Director Singh leaned forward. "How many?" 47. "I'll pick them myself." The room erupted in argument. 47 people to fight an enemy that had consumed 17 worlds? It was insane. It was impossible. It was suicide, but General Reyes just kept smiling. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "They don't need soldiers. They need teachers. And we are going to teach them how humans fight." 1 week later, a single transport ship left Earth. It carried 47 humans and enough supplies for a long journey. As they passed the moon, General Reyes looked out the window at the stars ahead. "Hold on, Queen Vatiri," she whispered. "Help is coming." Admiral Sorth stood in the docking bay with 500 of his best soldiers. They wore their finest armor and carried their most powerful weapons. This was meant to be a show of strength, a display of Salvani pride. Even in their darkest hour, they would greet their allies with dignity. The human ship had arrived 2 hours ago. It was small and ugly, nothing like the elegant vessels of the elder races. It looked like it had been built for function, not beauty. Sorth did not know what to expect from the creatures inside. He had studied everything he could find about humans. They were strange beings. They had soft skin instead of scales. They had hair growing from their heads. They needed to breathe oxygen and drink water constantly. Their bones broke easily. Their eyes could only see a small range of light. By every measure, they should have been one of the weakest species in the galaxy dot, and yet, the ship's door opened with a hiss of steam. Sorth straightened his spine and prepared to greet whatever army emerged. One person walked out first. It was a female human with gray hair and hard eyes. She wore simple clothes, not armor. She carried no visible weapons. She looked around the docking bay with the calm expression of someone who had seen much worse. Behind her came more humans. One by one, they walked down the ramp. Sorth counted them as they appeared. 10, 20, 30, 47 humans. That was all. Soreth felt his heart sink. He had hoped for thousands. He had prayed for tens of thousands. But the humans had sent 47 people to fight an enemy that had destroyed billions. Is this a joke? He whispered to his aide. The gray-haired woman approached him. She was shorter than Soreth by a full head. Her body looked fragile compared to his armored form. But something in her eyes made him want to step backward. Admiral Soreth? She said. Her voice was calm and clear. Yes, and you are? General Catherine Reyes, United Defense Council. You called for help. We're here. Soreth looked at the small group of humans behind her. Some were old. Some were young. Some were male and some were female. They carried bags of equipment, but he saw no heavy weapons. No vehicles. No war machines. General Reyes, he said slowly, I must ask, is this your full force? Yes, 47 individuals. Correct. Against the Kathrani horde, the enemy that has consumed 17 of our worlds. The enemy that numbers in the billions. General Reyes smiled. It was a small smile, but it made Soreth deeply uncomfortable. Admiral, I understand your concern. But you asked for fighters. You asked for the mightiest Earth could offer. That's exactly what we sent. With respect, General, I expected soldiers, armies, weapons of great power. And that's your first mistake. She turned and gestured to her people. Let me introduce you to what we brought. She pointed to a tall, dark-skinned man with calm eyes. Sergeant Yusuf Okonkwo. He spent 30 years in our special forces. He has operated alone in hostile territory for months at a time. He has killed more enemies than he can count using nothing but his hands and whatever tools he could find. She pointed to a short woman with muscles visible even through her clothing. Master Chime Liwei. She has dedicated 60 years to martial arts. She can disable an opponent 3 times her size in less than 2 seconds. She pointed to a thin man with glasses. Dr. Samuel Torres. Strategic genius. He has won simulated wars against impossible odds over 10,000 times. He can find weaknesses in any enemy. She continued down the line. Survivalists who had lived in the most dangerous environments on Earth. Engineers who could build weapons from garbage. Medics who had saved lives while bombs exploded around them. Hunters who had tracked the deadliest predators. Psychologists who understood how to break an enemy's mind. And then she pointed to 12 individuals standing together. They were all older, their bodies marked with scars. They stood with a stillness that seemed unnatural. These 12, General Reyes said, are what we call retired special forces. What does that mean? Soreth asked. It means they became so dangerous that our government paid them to stop fighting. They agreed to retire only because we gave them comfortable lives and promised never to call them back. When I contacted them about this mission, every single one volunteered within an hour. One of the 12, a woman with silver hair and missing fingers on her left hand, nodded at Soreth. Her eyes were completely empty of fear. You sent killers, Soreth said quietly. No, Admiral. We sent teachers. General Reyes stepped closer to him. Your people have been fighting this war the wrong way. You fight to survive. You fight defensively. You wait for the enemy to come, and then you try to hold them back. That's why you're losing. What other way is there? Our way. The human way. She looked up at him with those hard gray eyes. For most of our existence, humans fought each other. War after war after war. We killed each other over land, over resources, over ideas, over nothing at all. We became very, very good at it. That sounds like madness. It was. But it taught us something important. It taught us how to beat enemies that should be unbeatable. It taught us patience, deception, cruelty when necessary. It taught us that the smaller force can destroy the larger force if they are smart enough and mean enough. Sorath stared at her. He did not know what to say. General Reyes turned to face the 500 Selvani soldiers, watching in confusion. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking we're too few, too weak, too soft. You're thinking we've come here to die alongside you. She shook her head. You're wrong. We didn't come here to fight your war. We came here to teach you how to win it. She pointed at the Selvani soldiers. Look at you. Strong, fast, armored. You have claws and fangs and scales that can stop blades. By every physical measure, you are superior to us. And yet you're losing. Do you know why? No one answered. Because you've forgotten something. Something we never forgot. She smiled that cold smile again. You've forgotten that you're predators. You've become so civilized, so advanced, so peaceful that you've forgotten what your ancestors knew. You've forgotten how to hunt, how to kill, how to enjoy it. She stepped forward until she was standing directly in front of Admiral Sorath. Despite the difference in their sizes, she seemed larger somehow. We're going to remind you, she said. We're going to wake up the beast inside your people. And when we're done, the Kethrani are going to learn what happens when prey stops running and starts hunting back. Admiral Sorath looked into her eyes. He saw no doubt, no fear, only absolute certainty, for the first time in 3 years. He felt something besides despair. He felt hope, and somewhere deep inside, in a place he had almost forgotten existed, he felt something else. He felt hungry. The training began immediately. General Reyes wasted no time. Every hour that passed meant more Selvani dying on distant worlds. There was no room for slow lessons or gentle introductions. Queen Vathari watched from the observation room as the humans took over her military training facility. She had expected them to request advanced technology, new weapons, powerful ships. Instead, they asked for simple things: empty rooms, basic tools, access to all information about the Kethrani. I do not understand, she said to Admiral Sorath, who stood beside her. What can they teach us with empty rooms? Before Sorath could answer, a human voice spoke from behind them. May I explain, Your Majesty? They turned to find Sergeant Yusuf Okonkwo standing there. He had entered without making a sound. For a creature with no claws and soft feet, he moved like a ghost. Please, Vathari said. Okonkwo walked to the window and looked down at the training area below. Selvani warriors were gathered there, looking confused as humans walked among them. Your people are excellent soldiers, he said. Strong, disciplined, brave, but you fight like prey animals. We are not prey, Sora said with anger in his voice. No? When the Kethrani attack, what do? You defend. You build walls. You retreat to stronger positions. You try to survive their assault. Okonkwo shook his head. That is how prey thinks. Always running. Always hiding. Always hoping the predator will give up and leave. What else can we do? They are too many. You can hunt them. Okonkwo turned to face them. His dark eyes were calm but intense. On my world, there is an animal called the lion. It is large and powerful, with claws and teeth that can kill easily. For thousands of years, lions ate humans. We were slower, weaker. We had no natural weapons. By all logic, lions should have driven us to extinction. What happened? Vathari asked. We started hunting lions. We learned their patterns. We studied their weaknesses. We set traps. We attacked when they were sleeping, drinking, caring for their young. We killed them one by one until they learned to fear us. Now lions run when they see humans coming. The prey became the predator. He pointed down at the training floor. That is what we will teach your people. Not how to survive. How to hunt. How to make the Kethrani fear you. Over the following weeks, the Selvani military was transformed. Master Chen Liwei taught close combat. The Selvani had always relied on their natural weapons and their armor. They had never learned technique. Chen showed them how to use their strength efficiently, how to strike weak points, how to disable larger opponents. She fought demonstration matches against the biggest Selvani warriors and defeated them in seconds. You swing your arms like hammers, she told them. Wasteful, slow. Learn to strike like snakes, fast, precise, deadly. Dr. Samuel Torres studied the Kethrani obsessively. He analyzed every battle recording. He examined every captured piece of Kethrani technology. He dissected their tactics and found patterns. They are not as clever as you think, he announced to a room full of Selvani commanders. They adapt, yes, but they follow predictable rules. When they encounter resistance, they always reinforce from the same direction. When they take losses, they always retreat to resupply at the same intervals. We can use this. He drew diagrams on screens. He showed them how to set ambush that the Kethrani would walk into again and again. He designed traps that exploited weaknesses in Kethrani communication systems. He created strategies that would let smaller forces destroy larger ones. War is not about strength, he said. It is about information. Know your enemy better than they know themselves, and you have already won. The human engineers worked with Selvani scientists to create new weapons. Not bigger weapons, smarter weapons. Explosives that targeted specific Kethrani weaknesses. Jamming devices that disrupted their coordination. Chemical agents that corroded their metal flesh bodies. Your technology is more advanced than ours, admitted the chief engineer, a woman named Dr. Priya Sharma. But you design everything for defense. Shields, walls, armor. We design things to kill. Let us show you how. The psychologists had taught something the Selvani had never considered. Fear as a weapon. The Kethrani have intelligence, explained Dr. Michael Costa. That means they can feel fear. They can feel doubt. They can lose the will to fight. We're going to break their minds before we break their bodies. They design tactics to terrify the enemy. Leave bodies arranged in disturbing patterns. Attack at random intervals so the Kethrani could never rest. Send false signals to make them chase ghosts. Create the impression that the Selvani were everywhere and nowhere. Make them paranoid, Costa said. Make them jump at shadows. Make them fight each other because they can't trust their own senses. Fear is more powerful than any bomb. But the most important lessons came from the retired special forces. These 12 humans did not lecture or explain. They demonstrated. One night, Sergeant Okonkwo was sent alone into a sector occupied by Kethrani scouts. He carried no weapons except a metal pipe he found in the wreckage. He returned 12 hours later. 47 Kethrani were dead. He had not received a single wound. When asked how he did it, he simply shrugged. Patience, observation, violence applied at the right moment. The fundamentals. The Selvani warriors who accompanied him on the next mission learned those fundamentals. They learned to move silently. They learned to wait for hours without moving. They wing. They learned to strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. General Reyes observed everything. She pushed harder when progress slowed. She praised success and corrected failure. She never raised her voice, but somehow her quiet words carried more weight than any shout. One evening, Queen Vathari summoned her for a private meeting. General, the Queen said, I must ask you something. Why? Why did your people come here? We have nothing to offer you. We are dying. Helping us brings you no benefit. Reyes was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, Her voice was softer than usual. "When I was young, my home village was destroyed by an earthquake. Everyone I loved was buried under rubble. I was just a child. I couldn't save anyone." She looked at her scarred hands. "Soldiers from another region came. They had no obligation to help us. We were strangers, but they dug through the rubble for days. They saved everyone they could." She looked up at the Queen. "One of them told me something I never forgot. He said, when someone is suffering and you can help, you help. That's what makes us human." I didn't understand then. I do now, but we are not human. We are aliens to you. Your people. You love your children. You mourn your dead. You hope for a better future. That's human enough for me." Vathari felt tears forming in her eyes. "We will not forget this, General. Whatever happens, the Selvani will never forget what humanity did for us." Reyes smiled, and for the first time, it was a warm smile. "Don't thank us yet, Your Majesty. The real war hasn't started. But when it does, your people are going to shock the galaxy." She stood and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start planning the counterattack. And I promise you, the Kethrani are going to learn what fear really means." Vathos Prime was burning. The holy world of the Selvani people, home to their most sacred temples and their oldest memories, was surrounded by Kethrani forces. Massive swarm ships circled the planet like vultures waiting for their prey to die. Ground forces had already landed on the southern continent. Billions of Selvani civilians huddled in underground shelters, praying to gods who seemed to have abandoned them. This was the target General Reyes had chosen for the first major counterattack. "Are you certain about this?" Admiral Sarath asked as they stood on the bridge of the flagship. "If we fail here, we lose everything. Our spiritual heart. The will of our people. It would be the end." "That's exactly why we can't fail," Reyes replied. "Your people need a victory. Not a small victory. A miracle. We're gonna give them one." The plan was insane by any traditional military standard. The Selvani fleet was outnumbered 5-1. The Kethrani had complete control of the space around Vathos Prime. Every simulation predicted total defeat, but Dr. Torres had not designed the plan for traditional warfare. "The Kethrani expect us to attack their main fleet," he explained to the assembled commanders. "They expect us to be desperate, stupid, and predictable. We will be none of those things." The battle began at midnight, planetary time. The Selvani fleet appeared on the far side of the system, exactly where the Kethrani expected. The swarm ships turned to face them, preparing for a standard engagement. Their commanders felt confident. They had crushed every Selvani fleet before. This would be no different. They were wrong. The Selvani ships did not advance. Instead, they scattered, breaking into dozens of small groups that spread across the system. The Kethrani pursued, dividing their own forces to chase each group. This was the first trap, hidden among asteroids and debris. Waiting in complete silence for hours were strike teams of Selvani warriors. The humans had taught them patience. They had taught them to ignore the fear that screamed at them to move, to fight, to do something. They waited like stones while Kethrani ships passed close enough to touch. Then they struck. Small, precise attacks targeted Kethrani communication relays. The swarm used these relays to coordinate. Without them, individual Kethrani units became confused. They could still fight, but they could no longer act as one mind. "Phase 1 complete," Dr. Torres announced. "They're blind." The second trap was psychological. Throughout the system, the Selvani began broadcasting signals. Some were false distress calls, drawing Kethrani forces to locations where nothing existed. Some were recordings of Kethrani screams, taken from previous battles and edited to sound like an ongoing massacre. Some were simply silence, causing Kethrani units to wonder if their allies had been destroyed. Within hours, the Kethrani fleet was scattered and confused. Units attacked each other, mistaking allies for enemies. Commanders sent contradictory orders. Fear began to spread. "They've never experienced this," General Reyes said with satisfaction. "They've always been the hunters. They don't know how to be hunted." The third trap was the killing blow. While the Kethrani chased ghosts throughout the system, the real Selvani attack force approached Vathos Prime through the planet's shadow. They were small in number, but focused. Their target was not the Kethrani fleet. Their target was the command ship, the heart of the swarm's coordination. Admiral Sorath led the assault personally. He had argued against it, saying that commanders should not risk themselves in battle. General Reyes had disagreed. "Your people need to see you fight," she told him. "They need to see you bleed beside them. That's how humans lead. That's how you'll lead." Sorath's ship punched through the weakened Kethrani defenses and crashed directly into the command ship's hull. It was not a military tactic. It was barely controlled suicide. But it worked. Selvani warriors poured into the enemy vessel. They moved differently now. Quietly. Patiently. They did not charge screaming into battle. They stalked through corridors like predators, killing Kethrani before they even knew danger was near. Master Chen Liwei led one of the assault teams. She was 67 years old and weighed less than half of the smallest Selvani warrior. But she moved through the Kethrani like water through stones. Her hands found weak points in their metal flesh bodies. Her feet guided her past their clumsy attacks. She killed 32 Kethrani personally and did not receive a single scratch. Sergeant Okonkwo and his team found the command center. The Kethrani commander, a massive creature twice the size of its soldiers, waited for them there. It was surrounded by guards. It was heavily armed. It was completely confident in its superiority. Okonkwo studied it for a moment. Then he picked up a broken pipe from the floor. "Same as always," he said quietly. "Patience, observation, violence at the right moment." The fight lasted less than 4 minutes. When it was over, the Kethrani commander was dead, and its guards were scattered pieces on the floor. "Command ship neutralized," Okonkwo reported calmly. Without their command ship, the remaining Kethrani forces fell into complete chaos. Some fled. Some continued fighting blindly. Many simply shut down, their shared minds shattered beyond recovery. The Selvani fleet regrouped and attacked. For the first time, they did not fight defensively. They pursued. They hunted. They destroyed the Kethrani with a ferocity that shocked even General Reyes. Admiral Sorath stood on the bridge of a captured Kethrani vessel, watching his people tear the enemy apart. His scales were covered in blood, some of it his own. He had fought hand-to-hand with Kethrani soldiers and survived. He had done things he never thought possible. He felt alive in a way he had not felt in decades. The Battle of Vathos Prime lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Kethrani presence in the system had been completely eliminated. Not defeated, not pushed back, eliminated. Every last enemy ship was destroyed or captured. Every ground force was annihilated. It was the first total victory the Selvani had achieved in 3 years. Queen Vathari descended to the surface of Vathos Prime to address her people. The temples were damaged but standing. The cities were scarred but alive. Billions of Selvani emerged from their shelters to see their queen standing in the sunlight. "Today," she announced, her voice broadcast across the planet, "we stopped running. Today, we remembered what we are. Not prey, not victims. We are Selvani. We are hunters. And the Kethrani will learn to fear our name." The crowd erupted in cheers unlike anything heard in Selvani history. General Reyes watched from a distance. She was tired. Her bones ached. She had not slept in 30 hours. But she was smiling. Queen Vethari found her later, standing alone on a balcony overlooking the celebration. "General," the queen said, "thank you. You have given us something beyond price. You have given us hope." "No," Reyes replied. "We gave you permission. Permission to fight. Permission to be angry. Permission to be dangerous. The hope was always inside you. You just needed someone to wake it up. What happens now?" Reyes looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Kethrani horde was regrouping. They had suffered their first real defeat, but they were not destroyed. The war was far from over. "Now?" Reyes said. "Now we teach them what happens when they corner something that refuses to die. Now we hunt them across the galaxy until they break or we do." She turned to face the queen. "And I promise you, Your Majesty, we don't break easy." 2 years passed. 2 years of blood and fire and relentless warfare. 2 years during which the galaxy watched in disbelief as the dying Selvani Dominion rose from its ashes and became something terrifying. The Battle of Vathus Prime had been only the beginning. Victory after victory followed. The Selvani reclaimed their lost worlds one by one. They did not simply push the Kethrani back. They hunted them. They pursued them into the dark spaces between stars. They found their breeding grounds and destroyed them. They captured their supply ships and turned the resources against them. The Kethrani had never experienced anything like this. For millions of years, they had consumed everything in their path. Nothing had ever stopped them. Nothing had ever fought back with such fury. They did not understand what was happening, but they learned to fear it. By the end of the second year, the Kethrani horde was broken, not destroyed, because General Reyes had advised against total extermination. Even monsters deserved a chance to change, she argued. But the horde was reduced from a galaxy-spanning threat to scattered remnants hiding in the darkest corners of space. The Selvani forced them to sign a treaty. The Kethrani, who had never negotiated anything in their existence, agreed to every demand. They had no choice. Continue fighting, and they would be erased from the universe. Surrender, and some of them might survive. They chose survival. The Galactic Assembly watched all of this with growing amazement and growing fear. The Selvani had been considered a dying empire. Weak, soft, doomed to extinction. Now they were one of the most feared powers in the galaxy. Their warriors were legends. Their tactics were studied by military academies across 100 worlds. Their name made enemies hesitate. And at the center of every story were the 47 humans. Representatives from a dozen empires sent secret messages to Earth. They asked the same questions. How had the humans done it? What was their secret? Could they perhaps offer similar assistance if needed? The United Defense Council responded to each inquiry with the same answer. "We don't fight your wars. We teach you to win them. If you want our help, you must be willing to change. To unlearn everything you think you know. To become something harder and more dangerous than you ever imagined. If you are willing to pay that price, contact us again." Several empires did contact them again. Over the following decades, human military advisors became some of the most valuable assets in the galaxy. They were not soldiers. They were teachers, and their lessons transformed every civilization they touched. But that came later. First, there was a ceremony. Queen Vethari hosted it on Vathus Prime, in the great plaza outside the Temple of Stars. Millions of Selvani gathered to witness the event. Millions more watched through broadcast systems across the Dominion. 47 pillars of black stone stood in a circle at the center of the plaza. Each pillar was 12 feet tall, polished to a mirror shine. On each pillar was carved a single name: General Catherine Reyes, Sergeant Yusuf Okonkwo, Master Chun Liwei, Dr. Samuel Torres, Dr. Priya Sharma, Dr. Michael Kostadot, and 41 others. Every human who had answered the call. Every human who had come to save strangers for no reason, except that it was right. Queen Vaithari stood before the monument. She was older now. The war had aged her. But her eyes were strong, and her voice did not shake as she spoke. 3 years ago, I sent a message into the void. A desperate cry for help from a dying empire. I expected nothing. I hoped for anything. She turned to look at the humans standing nearby. Some of them were crying. Even General Reyes had moisture in her eyes. What I received was a miracle. 47 beings from a distant world. 47 strangers who owed us nothing. They came to our darkest hour and gave us something more valuable than weapons or ships or soldiers. They gave us ourselves. She walked to the base of the monument, where a large plaque had been installed. It bore words in both Salvani script and English. This inscription will stand here for eternity, Vaithari said. Long after we are all dust. Future generations will read these words and remember what the humans did for us. She read the inscription aloud. They did not give us victory. They reminded us we were never prey. The crowd erupted in cheers that shook the stones of the ancient temple. Later, there was a smaller gathering. Just the humans and the queen, sitting together in her private garden. Good food, strong drink. The kind of quiet peace that comes after long struggle. General Reyes sat beside Queen Vaithari. Both of them were exhausted, but neither wanted to sleep. Not yet. What will you do now? Vaithari asked. Return to Earth? Eventually. But first, I want to see your worlds recover. I want to see children playing in streets that used to be battlefields. I want to see your people living, not just surviving. You care about us, truly care. Of course I do. Reyes smiled. That's what makes us human, Your Majesty. We form connections. We build families with strangers. We find people worth fighting for, and then we fight until we can't fight anymore. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning. Home. You know, she said, when I was young, I thought strength meant never needing anyone. I thought the strongest people were the ones who could stand alone against the universe. And now? Now I know that's nonsense. The strongest people are the ones who find others to stand with. The ones who give without expecting anything back. The ones who make strangers into family. She turned to face the queen. Your people became our family, Vaithari. That's why we fought so hard. That's why we'll always be here if you need us. Vaithari reached out and took the human's hand. The queen's scales were cool against Rhea's warm skin. Two species, separated by millions of years of evolution and thousands of light years of space, connected by something as simple as a touch. And you are our family now, Vaithari said. Forever. The Salvani Dominion will never forget. We will never abandon humanity. Whatever comes, whatever threatens your people, we will be there. I know you will. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars wheeled overhead. 1 week later, General Reyes and her team boarded their transport ship. They were returning to Earth, their mission complete. But they knew this was not goodbye. It was only the beginning of a long relationship between their peoples. As the ship lifted off from Vaithos Prime, Sergeant Okonkwo looked out the window at the world shrinking below them. Salvani ships filled the sky, escorting them with honor. Millions of people were watching, praying for their safe journey. Not bad, Okonkwo said quietly. For 47 people. General Reyes smiled. We didn't save them alone, Sergeant. We just showed them they could save themselves. That's all we ever do. The ship entered hyperspace, and the stars stretched into lines of light around them, on Earth. Journalists would ask Reyes the same question 100 times. How did it feel to save an alien civilization? How did it feel to be a hero? She always gave the same answer in that calm voice that had commanded armies and terrified enemies. We didn't do anything special. We just showed them what happens when you corner something that refuses to die. But in private moments, when no one was watching, she would look at a small piece of black stone she carried in her pocket. A gift from Queen Vithory. A fragment of one of the memorial pillars, and she would remember. She would remember the fear and the hope, the blood and the tears. The moment when a dying empire rose from its knees and became something magnificent. She would remember 47 humans who crossed the galaxy to save strangers. And she would smile, because that was what made humanity special. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not their science or their technology. It was their stubborn, irrational, beautiful belief that everyone deserved a chance. Everyone deserved help. Everyone deserved someone who refused to let them die. That was the human way. And now, thanks to them, it was the Selvani way too. Somewhere across the galaxy, other empires were learning the same lessons. Other civilizations were discovering what they could become. The age of prey was ending. The age of hunters was beginning. And at the heart of it all, 47 names carved in black stone reminded the universe of one simple truth. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.